The reality is that grinders, whether that's a belt grinder, an angle grinder, or a stone grinder, are extremely handy tools in the blacksmith shop. Human-powered and water-powered sandstone wheels have been around for centuries, and they're very old, very traditional tools. There's nothing wrong with grinding, at least not in my opinion. If you don't want to grind, that's fine. But they're expensive, especially that big belt grinder that I was showing you. That's not a cheap tool. Even angle grinders cost some money, and they cost money to buy abrasives for. They continuously need to be fed more sandpaper. Grinders are noisy. You should wear hearing protection when you're using a grinder. You should wear respiratory protection when you're using a grinder. So they can be annoying, they can be expensive, and they take time away from the forge. Now sometimes that's time well spent because they are so fast, but sometimes you just need to do a little bit of grinding on a rough edge and then get back into the fire. And that's time wasted because you have to let it cool down, grind it, go back to the fire, get it hot again, and then get back to work. So what's your option if you don't want to grind, but you still need to remove a little material through some sort of stock removal method? If it's cold, filing is a good option. But you can do that hot, and we call that hot rasping. Really, the name says it all. You get your material hot, and you take a rasp, and you rasp, or file. It's all about the same. It's really not a difficult technique. Mark Asprey once said that there has not been a grinder made that can keep up with a motivated blacksmith, a piece of hot iron, and a rasp. Personally, I don't think I've ever been that motivated, but I get his point. You can take a lot of material off with one of these. This is an old Farriers rasp. It's what they use for shaping horses' hooves when they're reshoeing a horse, or just simply providing care for horses' feet. They are extremely sharp and aggressive when they are new. They're almost useless for hot rasping when they're new because they are so grabby. You want one that's pretty much worn out. The farriers throw these away, sometimes several a day, are trash. And if you can make friends with a farrier or find some online that are used, worn out rasps, they're either free or a couple of dollars a piece. I've been using this same Farriers rasp for 20 or more years, and it still works just fine for hot rasping. You're not going to have to replace it very often. If you have something that's a little grabby and the Farriers rasp is too aggressive, I have this big half-round file that's also completely worn out. It's a terrible file, but for hot filing, or light rasping perhaps you might call it, or trying to get into corners and things that, maybe you've split the tines of a fork and it's kind of ragged, this is a great tool for getting into that. So let's take a look at some hot rasping. So I've got this piece of square bar I cut off on the Hardy, and it's got a little pointy, raggedy end on it that I just don't like. I want a nice smooth end. So I'm going to take my Farriers rasp, and that grabs that end. So I'm going to flip to the file side, and I'm going to run it both directions. Now that it's kind of smooth, I'm going to go to the rasp side. And you work it both directions. You just rub. This isn't like a file that you're going to wear out by doing this. You're working soft iron. Now that is flat and smooth. I took about 1/4 of an inch off of that in that amount of time. If you want more, you can keep doing more. But get it hot. Once it cools down, this doesn't work so well. So you've made this element by splitting it with a chisel, hot, and it's ragged in there. You want this smooth. You want people to be able to touch it and not cut themselves. But you can't really do a very good job with this big rasp. That's where this half-round file can really help. It won't quite get into the edge, but it gets close, and it is almost effective as the coarser rasp is. And with a little bit of work, you can clean this up very nicely. Again, you file both directions. This is different than cold filing. So really, that's all there is to it. Get yourself a big half-round file that's coarse. An old used one, somebody's selling at a garage sale for $1 is fine. Get an old Farriers rasp that's pretty much worn out, and you're set. You can do as much stock removal with these tools as you can with a grinder on hot material. It doesn't work on tools that have been hardened and tempered, obviously, but that's a whole nother ballgame. I don't think hot rasping is a particularly old traditional technique. Talking to blacksmiths who specialize in historical reproductions say they find no evidence of it in the old work or in the old texts and journals about it. But it's still handwork, and it's still a very good technique, and I think it deserves some consideration in your shop. So until the next time, enjoy your time in the shop, stay safe, wear your safety glasses. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. Take care.